Welcome to Wes's War. I am Tony Howells and this is a Wet Fish Films production. Part 3, MTBs and the End of World War II. Wes was back in HMS Victory, Shore Training Establishment, 23rd of February 1942 to the 24th of March 1942, and then again from the 3rd of April 1942 to the 8th of May 1942. I can only surmise there was again some shore leave, as there is little or nothing on Wes's trade certificate showing training or examinations. Wes joined HMS Vernon, Portsmouth, HMTB 101 and 102, leading torpedo officer, 1st of May 1943 to the 22nd of July 1943. Wes, 28th of June 1943. He was again in HMS Vernon in training and examinations, this time for leading torpedo man, and sadly failed. Maybe the stress of war and operations was just too much at the time. He was withdrawn and failed. In this day and age, we may call this burnout, or, in military terms, PTSD. MTB 101 was an experimental type MTB. She was built by J.S. White at Cowes, England, in December 1936 and was lost in the Solent due to a hydrofoil failure in 1942. MTB 102 is one of the few surviving motor torpedo boats that served with the coastal forces of the Royal Navy in the Second World War. Designed by Commander Peter Duquesne, the managing director of Vosper Limited in 1936. She was launched and completed in Portsmouth in 1937, bought by the Admiralty and taken into service with the Royal Navy as MTB 102, the 100 series denoting a prototype vessel. She had an all-wooden hull, described as double diagonal Honduras mahogany, on a Canadian rock elm frame. Besides the torpedoes, she was built with depth charges, machine guns, Swiss Oerlikon 20mm anti-aircraft cannon, all of which were tested on her. MTB 102 was the fastest wartime British vessel in service at 48 knots. During Operation Dynamo, the evacuation of British expeditionary forces and allies from Dunkirk, she crossed the channel a total of 8 times. When the destroyer HMS Keith, by a bomb from a Stuka, Rear Admiral Walker transferred to MTB 102, using her as his flagship for the last 2 nights of the operation, directing the incoming and outgoing vessels at Dunkirk from the bridge. MTB 102 was 68 feet long, 15 feet wide and had a draft of 4 feet. She was powered by 3 Isotta Franchi 57-litre petrol engines, each with 1100 horsepower, giving her a speed of 48 knots when light and 43 knots when fully loaded and armed. This made her the fastest British wartime vessel in history. Wes, 23rd of July 1943 to 5th of August 1943, stationed at St Christopher, today we know it as Fort William, MTB's LTO. St Christopher was commissioned in October 1940. She was in service a total of 4 years until being decommissioned in December 1944. She was the UK base where you could go and train with live torpedoes, with a firing range and also a range to fire on aircraft that were going overhead. Wes, on HMTB 630, 6th of August 1943 to the 3rd of September 1943, is stationed at HMS Hornet, which is Haslar, today where the Hornet Services Sailing Club is, in Gosport. Wes's role was coxswain, i.e. he steered the ship. HMS Gosport was a major base of the coastal forces that carried out amphibious raids on German-occupied Europe, e.g. blowing up U-boat bases. Later, in the 1970s, it was turned into a sailing centre. Wes, here we see for the first time in Wes's record him being referred to as a coxswain on board an MTB. He told me many times of his duties and the things he did. He's now back in St Christopher, Fort William on MTB 724 from the 4th of September 1943 to the 30th of November 1943, clearly on trials again, firing torpedoes and their guns. Back in Fort William training establishment, this time on MTB 724, built by Walsea Bay Yacht Station. MTB 724 weighed 102 tons, 115 foot long. She did 31 knots with 5,000 horsepower petrol engines. She had 4 18-inch torpedoes, 9 ack guns, 1 6-pounder, quite a craft to be a coxswain on, I'd say. HMS Wasp, Dover, MTB 724, 1st of December 1943 to the 30th of June 1944. Wes told me a story about being out before D-Day with divers on his MTB, taking them to Normandy beaches, clearing obstructions and mines. For months before D-Day, he was in the right place, stationed in Dover area, to do this job. D-Day, 6th of June 1944. HMS Hornet, Hasler, HMTB 724, 1st of July 1944 to the 28th of August 1944. HMS Hornet, Hasler, HMTB 724, 29th of August 1944 to the 19th of December 1944. HMS Hornet, Hasler, HMTB 794, 20th of December 1944 to the 28th of February 1945. A number of the motor launches involved in the cross-channel combined operations, pilotage parties, PP operations were based in HMS Hornet in Gosport. Hornet was a stone frigate, meaning it was a shore establishment for the various coastal forces. It is located just over the harbour from Portsmouth and adjacent to HMS Dolphin, the submarine base. This meant it was ideally placed to support COPP reconnaissance operations on the Normandy coast. For instance, on the 31st of December 1943, MGB 312, 316 and 317, all from the 14th MGB flotilla, were all involved in Operation KJH. This was carried out to survey the beach in Vers-sur-Mer, the Riviera Normandy. They were either towed halfway across the channel to save fuel and allow them to get there and back without any issues, and then they carried out their operations. And in mid-January 1944, ML-190 and ML-205 were involved in Operation Postage Abbey, 17th to the 21st of January 1944. The planners were aware that Omaha Beach would pose a considerable challenge for the assault forces, both because of its defensive forces and geography, and this operation was to see what was there. Wes, he was there at the time, and he recounted on many occasions going over to the beaches in Normandy to check things out and remove obstacles. It was always done on moonless nights, making it easier not to be spotted. HMS Midge, Coastal Forces Base, Great Yarmouth, HMTB 794, 1st of March 1945 to the 21st of May 1945. Victory in Europe Day, 8th of May 1945. Wes is now at HMS Attack, Portland. HMTB 794, 1st of June 1945 to the 6th of December 1945, after which he was released from service. Coastal Forces. A headquarters was established at Gosport to provide the organisation to develop the role of coastal forces in home waters, commanded throughout its existence between 1940 and 1943 by Rear Admiral Piers Kirkwich, Commanding Officer 6th of May 1945 to the 3rd of July 1945, W. Frame, RNVR. As you can see, MTB 724 was a very different boat than the MTBs 101 and 102 Wes started on. Wes finished his war at HMS Attack, Portland, where his MTB was likely decommissioned. Before that, it was involved in a gunnery competition where it took honours. You can see from the map some of the journeys, routes and locations Wes was on duty. It doesn't show the frequency of operation, neither does his records, and ship's records were not as prolific on smaller vessels. However, the risks were much higher and the operations often more dangerous. As they say, he was in the thick of it. Wes did his duty. He never considered himself a hero. He would say all the heroes were left behind and died. Personally, I am not so sure. His family are proud of their dad, granddad and great-granddad, and all that he did to protect our freedom. Wes asked me 30 years ago would I scatter his ashes at sea in the English Channel with his comrades. I had the honour of doing this in September 2023. I just want to say thank you to his daughter Joyce and her husband Derek, without who these films would not have been made. Finally, it was my honour to know Wes. He invited me and my family into his family. Him and his wife, Dot, were one-offs, truly special people. This was a Wet Fish film. Thank you for taking the time to watch these films. Goodbye for now.